All right, hello wine drinking people. Today is, well, it doesn't really matter what day it is because this is what I drank yesterday, folks. And a lot of you are jealous because you couldn't make it to the Lewis tasting. And a lot of people were like, what the heck? I never got notice of that. Well, it was been on the calendar for 3 months. And, we don't send out an individual announcement at an event if it sells out. It's already sold. We don't need to sell it again. Well, that's what happened with the Lewis event. It's been sold out for over a month before the events. And, it happened on Friday, the 23rd of March. Our good friends Randy and Debbie Lewis were in town. We haven't seen Randy and Debbie together for some time here in this market. But I remember 20-some-odd years ago when they first walked into the door at Cafe Maxx, 1990, I think it was. And they came up to the bar and said, hi, we're Randy and Debbie Lewis with Oakville Ranch Winery. And we just heard you guys were a great restaurant. We're going to stop by and say hello. And I said, do you guys have an appointment? Because I'm really busy right now. Well, we did become good friends after that, and they make great wines. We had everything on the wine list at Cafe Maxx from Oakville Ranch, and then, of course, Lewis Cellars when they started their own project in 1992, 20 years ago. It's hard to believe it's already been 20 years that Lewis Cellars has been doing business. And I don't follow a lot of people that buy juice. And Randy and Debbie didn't have a ton of money to invest in vineyard lands. So, they've been buying juice their whole entire career, but they've made really good friends with some great growers. And these guys make consistently excellent wines every year. They do have their own winery. They can control that aspect of production now, but, they're still at the mercy of the growers. And, like I said, if you know what you're doing, if you know the people who are growing your grapes, you can control things and make just as good a wine as people who own their own vineyards, and Lewis is proof. We have put these wines into blind tastings, into our cult tasting against wines like Screaming Eagle, Harlan, Colgan, and they always come out near the top of the pack, just like Randy. Hey, he never did win no checkered flag, but he never did come in last. All right, I think that was Primus that said that. All right, well, let's see. We started the evening out with a little Lewis Chardonnay Napa, which the 2010 vintage, maybe a little young, but, they make their wines really forward and drinkable. I love one of the tasters last night. He compared the young Lewis wines to a slap in the face. When you taste them, they really smack you right in the... they're big, they're unctuous, they got a lot of alcohol in them. And then, of course, when they aged, Randy was nice enough to send the 1999 out of 3 liter. They're like someone just caressing, your forehead instead of the smack. They do become very elegant, and they have balance, which is the most important thing in aging in terms of wine. Because, if you don't have balance to start, like some of these wines from the 80s that were really tannic, they're just going to be even more tannic or less fruity when they get older and still have that tannin. These wines have got incredible balance, so they're ready to drink on release, but you can keep them. As we have proven through the years in our various Lewis tastings, they do age very well. The 2010 Napa Chardonnay, little notes of creme flan and vanilla spice to the pear and red apple fruit on the nose. Some white flowers there also. Smooth and creamy on the tongue with a good hand of that ripe, delicious white peach and apple fruit. A nice touch of lightly toasted oak spice too. And good freshness here finishing up the wine and, making you yearn for another sip. The 2010 Sonoma, we served with the first course. We served the Sonoma Chardonnay and the Lewis Sauvignon Blanc 2010. That's right, I said Sauvignon Blanc. Lewis started making Sauvignon Blanc in 2008. Ollie did a nice little oyster dish, which I thought was nicer with a Sauvignon Blanc. And, the Chardonnay was really good with a scallop dish. But, both of those wines are nice with food. Lewis's wines are not overly oaked. The Sonoma is a little bit more luscious and ripe peach and tropical fruit on the nose, a hint of creme brulee, a little cinnamon spice, some minerality, a very complex bouquet there. Fat and lush wine on the palate with that peach and tropical fruit showing a nice touch of creme caramel on the finish. But again, nice freshness, even though this wine is very rich. A little hint of oak and butterscotch on the finish as well. The Sauvignon Blanc comes from a vineyard on Mount Veeder. Nice hand of minerality in this wine, some fresh baled hay, a little bit of that green kind of grassy herbal note you get from Sauvignon Blanc, but some lush tropical pink grapefruit and melon fruit. Really nice richness on the palate here. Lovely texture of like whole milk. That savory pink grapefruitness making the tongue salivate for food. Some nice ripe melon there as well, filling out the mid palate. A little bit of that herbaceousness on the finish, but lovely zesty acidity leaves the tongue salivating for food. One of the things we love about Sauvignon Blanc. All right, up next we had a flight of SYRAH. SYRAH can be tough to sell, and one of the Lewis's most successful wines is over 70% SYRAH this year, the ALECS blend. The ALECS blend, because it doesn't say SYRAH on the label for some reason, has been a wild success. SYRAH, on the other hand, they've had to pare down the production because even though they make one of the best SYRAHs in California, Still a little tough to sell at over $60 a bottle. I've got a great Syrah story, though. One of the local wine groups here, the Wine Wizards, was putting on a Syrah tasting, and several of the people came to me before the tasting to say, what do you recommend for a Syrah? This has got to win the tasting, because whoever wins doesn't have to pay that night. So people were willing to spend a few more bucks than $80, obviously, because I took everybody to the Lewis Syrah initially, and they said, not good enough. Can we get something better? And I said, okay, well, that means more expensive. Here, have the Penfolds Grange at $400. One person that took over to the Three Rivers at $700. And I, of course, brought the Lewis Syrah and won the tasting with the 2008 Syrah because it is killer. Very showy, very drinkable. The 2004 Grange, well, it's going to last a hell of a lot longer, but unfortunately not drinking really nicely right now. But this Syrah, as all of Randy's wines, the ALECS blend, a blend of 80% Syrah, 17% Merlot, and some Cabernet Sauvignon. It's lovely sweet tobacco spice, cigar box, clove, sweet black cherry liqueur, notes of dark chocolate, just really decadent on the nose. Doesn't that just make you want to have a glass? That description, smooth and velvety on the tongue, that lovely sweet cherry fruit showing, a little bit of kirsch, ripe dark chocolate, and substantial tannins, but very ripe and very drinkable, delicious stuff. The Ethan Syrah, and all the rest of these are 100% Syrah. Very complex bouquet. Had a lot more floral qualities to it. Violet, a little licorice, bacon fat, blackberry, boysenberry, fruit on the nose, dark cocoa, some black pepper spice here, but the focus on that lovely floral quality. Really ripe and jammy on the tongue with loads of dark berry fruit, bitter cocoa, dark spices, fine tannins, a long finish, even though big and jammy, still lovely freshness at the end of this wine. The 9, the 8, and the 7 Syrah are next, and all three of these excellent. This one of the highest rated Syrahs according to the Wine Spectator. The 2008 got 96 points. I think the 2009 got 95 points. 2007, 94 points. Always in the mid to upper 90s, but I always say you can't drink points. The difference between these two, the 8 and the 9, very decadent and fruity, and lovely dark chocolate and kind of cherry liqueur, espresso notes in these wines. The 2009, just a little bit younger. The 08 starting to show a little softer tannins in the wine. And the 2007, a different vineyard source. This was the last year that the Lewis's got fruit from Pritchard Hill. Tim Mondavi bought this property, ripped up the Syrah, planted more Cabernet, and of course he's using it for his own wine continuum. But this 2007 had that distinct minerality that you get from mountain fruit, had that lovely fresh earth quality to it. Well, just more of it than the 08 and the 09, but still that lovely decadent fruit that Lewis wines are so well known for. Black cherry liqueur, dark chocolate, espresso notes, just absolutely fantastic. And then thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Farver, for bringing the 1999 Syrah Napa out of Magnum. This was several people's wine of the night, and it had this lovely earthy quality to it also, this decadent kind of black truffle and dark spice to it. It was a little licorice and really smooth and velvety on the palate, drinking at or near its peak right now because it was out of Magnum, maybe a little fresher, but lovely complexity. Thank you guys once again for providing one of the wines of the night. And then our Cabernet flights. We had the Mason's Cabernet, we had the Napa, the Reserve, the Cuvée L, and then the Lance Armstrong. Wait a minute. Can we afford all this for $150? No, this is one of these events. I don't know. I must have done Chinese math or something when I added this up. So those of you that made it, congratulations. One of the best values we've done all year. The Lance Armstrong Cuvée is $350 a bottle. Hey, was it that much better than the Masons? It's one of the things when you have a lineup of wines like this. I looked over to Randy and said, man, this Mason's is really good. A little different stylistically. The Mason's had a little bit more of this kind of floral quality to it, a hint of eucalyptus, but still really ripe and jammy fruit, 15.5% alcohol, cassis and dark cherry fruit, lovely dark chocolate also. Really big Cabernet on the palate, really unctuous, smooth and velvety, but a real drinkable style for such a young wine. In the end, still had that savory quality, leaving your tongue salivating for food or wanting another glass, which a lot of big wines do not have. The 2009 Napa, a very rich and forward wine, currant cassis berry fruit, nice hand of toasty oak spice, dark chocolate, espresso, sweet tobacco, really lovely nose on this wine, and then just ripe and jammy on the palate, but still lovely balance here. And, lots of everything, not just lots of fruit. It still leaves the tongue salivating for food. One of the things that I usually don't say about Cabernet Sauvignon, especially this this ripe of Cabernet. The 2008, kind of the most ready to drink. This is a really lovely vintage in terms of, you know, it's toffee and milk chocolate to it, dark cherry, currant berry fruit, sweet herbs, fresh earth, really complex Cabernet Sauvignon. And I always tell Randy his reserve is not twice as good as his regular Cab, hey, it's not twice the price either. It's maybe a third more. The 2005 Cuvée L, which is just a selection of the top barrels. They only make 300 cases of this wine. Just seem to be at another level, you know. Again, I don't know if it's twice as good as the Reserve Cab, but definitely a step up. Some kind of fudge and chocolate notes here, espresso, dark earth to that black cherry kirsch and currant berry fruits, like Lewis Reserve on steroids. And some nice earthy quality to this wine as well, but definitely more on the fruit-driven side, almost Shiraz-like in concentration. But again, you know, lovely balance in this wine. The Cuvée L, Lance Armstrong, something Randy does with his good buddy Lance Armstrong. And, you know, this is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon-based wine, and really rich and concentrated kirsch, cherry liqueur-like concentration, a real blockbuster. Lots of earth and density to this wine, and still some nice freshness on the finish, though. The 1999 3-liter that Randy sent in from the winery. Thank you very much, Randy. I know you only made 2 of these, and a special occasion to be able to show, you know, older vintage out of 3-liter here. This wine, this was the one that was kind of just starting to caress you instead of slapping you over the face. The 99, fully mature now. Lovely soft tannins in this wine. The fruit still singing in this wine, not shouting like it was in the younger wines, but fantastic stuff. Most excellent juice. As was everything. That's what we had to drink at our Lewis tasting, folks. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.